Hello and welcome back or welcome to the channel. I'm Loudguns, and in today's video I'm going to be talking a bit about my experiences with the 324 Evocati build so far, and some of the potential on offer for mining enthusiasts within the coming patch. Specifically, I think what appear on the surface as quite small updates can translate into much more potential for advanced multi-crew mining operations. Since this build is still in Evocati, I can talk about it, but I can't actually show it to you, so you'll have to exercise your imaginations just a little bit for this one. But to help you with that, why not grab a cup of tea while I roll the intro, then let's get into it. 324 is bringing a key new feature in the form of cargo elevators to Star Citizen, where physicalized cargo can now be moved off your ship and into the station inventory. You've almost certainly, unless you've been living under a space rock, seen some videos covering these. But understandably, the vast majority of coverage has been focused on the cargo gameplay loops. However, I think they also represent a big step forward for the mining profession as well. That being said, the build is an Evo, and for anyone who feels like they're missing out, don't worry about it too much. Nearly everything that is promising here is also varying degrees of broken right now. However, there is clearly intent behind some of the updates. As long as CIG can get them fixed, they are very promising. Particularly for those of us who want to put together increasingly complex mining ops relying on teamwork. As the patch moves to more open levels of PTU, we'll be testing a lot of this within our group on the Frontier Discord. So if you're keen to get involved with more team-focused gameplay, please do hop on via the link in the video description down below. So in this video, we're going to go over some of the changes I've already seen in the 324 build, think about how they might logically progress if they manage to get a bit more polish ahead of a go time, and theorycraft an advanced mining operation based off of this. So let's start by looking at the new functionality, while acknowledging some of the bugs. First up, we've got the ability to buy mining ore bags, and bring them into your hangar via the cargo elevator. Being able to buy the bags in itself is not new, but in previous patches it wasn't possible to actually spawn them in. When we wanted to build up supplies of spare bags, we had to repeatedly claim moles, bring them out of Armistice, and tractor beam the bags off the ships and onto our cargo ships. While we did do this to trial more complex mining ops within Frontier, it was far from efficient, since it would take a night of prep work ahead of an event, and if we had successful runs, there wasn't a good way to quickly go and resupply the cargo vessels with more bags during the op. Currently there are issues which have made their way into the confirmed issue council reports. The bags are spawning weirdly in the elevators, clipped through the floor, and are hard to bring out, but hopefully this does get fixed before live. Assuming it does, this should make it possible to easily preload cargo ships with plentiful spare pods, and should it be needed, resupply with fresh pods quickly during an op to make sure that you can continue to roll. This should also make it nice and easy to switch your Prospector's pods for Argo Mole ones. Weirdly, Misc and Argo pods are exactly the same size, but the Argo ones hold 12 SCU each as opposed to the 8 SCU found on the Misc versions. So by replacing your Prospector's pods with Argo ones, you can effectively increase the capacity on a Prospector to 48 SCU versus the base 32. This does reveal a couple of problems with mining ship design though. Both the Mole and the Prospector are designed to have their saddlebags removed downwards. You unlock the ports on the ship, and then the bag itself is pulled straight down and out from underneath. This is really easy to do when the ship is in space, but it's impossible to do when the ship is landed. Through some jank, I was able to pull a Prospector pod out with the ship landed in the hangar, but it wasn't possible at all to get a pod re-equipped with the ship on the ground. So despite the added convenience of being able to bring pods into your hangar and utilise tractor beams in there, you will need to work with at least one other person to pull bags off and put them onto your ships, with one of you hovering the vessel while the other switches the bags. But personally, I'd probably focus more on the cargo ship angle. I've long been looking for a way in which we can use cargo ships and mining ships together, because then we allow more time for the miners to focus on mining, while the cargo ships can ferry the goods back and forth between a refinery. And another big update here is that the mining bags now recognise and snap to cargo grids, both in the elevators and in ships themselves. Due to some more bugs, I wasn't able to test whether stacking bags works in something like a C2, which should theoretically have plenty of space for one to stack on top of the other. But even if we can only go one high, there's still plenty of space on board a Herc to fit plenty of bags, both spares and full ones that you pull off mining ships. This will firstly make it a lot easier to manipulate and deal with the mining bags themselves. When we ran our test stop, having the bags freestanding in the cargo hold did cause more than a few issues. But it should also deal with a big issue that we encountered during the test, entity limits. We had a problem where, because all of the bags were off-grid, they were skyrocketing the entity counts, and we had to be very careful not to pull out any unnecessary items, even like drinks bottles, for fear of causing some of our full bags to despawn. The snapping also makes a ship like the Hull C viable as a mining satellite. Previously, since it lacks a proper cargo hold, it was pretty useless, and we had to use C2s as our main cargo ships for mining ops. But with the bags now snapping to a grid, we can make use of the spindles of the Hull C to store empties and full bags. So like I said, these features might seem somewhat minor, but I think that as long as some of the wrinkles get ironed out ahead of live, they're actually going to represent a huge leap forward in the types of mining op that we can run. I put this together purely as a sample combined operation that we can start looking at in 3.24. Big shout out to Starjump for this amazing fleet viewer tool. I'll include a link to it if you haven't seen it down in the video description. Essentially, the Hull C is the linchpin of this op, and it acts as a space station for the miners. It can hang around in dead space, but close to the mining site to reduce travel distances while staying away from prying eyes and sneaky pirates. Mining ships, rather than having to head all the way back to the refinery, can go instead to the Hull C to offload their bags full of ore. Ahead of the op, we would ensure that half of the Hull C spindles were full of empty bags, while the other half are ready to receive the full ones. This way we can clearly distinguish between where we're putting and pulling bags to unload and reload the mining ships. Alongside the hull, we also have a Starfarer and a Cutlass Red, allowing our crews to refuel their ships and heal any injuries or take on sustenance without needing to come back to a proper station. I'd also propose using the Starfarer's cargo bay to store a few large crates that we can fill with plenty of spare consumable modules and mining gadgets, so if the crews need to restock on any of these, they can also do it while they're doing their drop-offs. We then have two Hercules, who will be making regular runs between refineries and the Hull C, picking up the full bags and resupplying it with empties as and when they're required, to make sure that it's always stocked and ready for the miners. Something that has been raised on the issue council as a problem is that we still can't set up refinery work orders from cargo ships, or from pods stored in the inventory of a station. Fingers crossed that this is just an oversight or something CIG haven't quite got round to yet, because this would be an essential feature for a smooth combined mining and cargo op. However, assuming all the features that are in place right now are polished up ahead of live, this is definitely something that we can work around. The Herc pilots can always store the bags in the station inventories until after the event, at which point we can transfer the bags onto a mole in the hangar, and set up the refinery work orders from there. Still, please CIG, it would be really cool if we could just set up the jobs from the C2s. Having dedicated cargo ships like this also allows us to make effective use of the different refining yields. If we can track the types of materials that we've taken on board, we can split them into different cargo ships that then travel to specific refineries to make use of the best bonus yields on offer. Again, I think the different cargo panels of the Hull C will help here. Front left for Bexalite, front right for gold, etc. This sort of op is probably targeted around 70 to 100 people ops, like we've put on previously within Frontier, but I did think that if you're doing a smaller version of this, then something like a Drake Caterpillar might work, since it offers the same easy way to divide up your bags based on what they have in them. Mining ships themselves are purely representative, but generally I think there's a good case for a mix of prospectors and moles. Crossbees make for really good scouts on mining ops, and if you come up against bigger rocks, you can always switch crew members on board the moles, so it's not like you need to always run them fully crewed. You can also bring in additional hands from the dedicated scout ships, for which I've just used 3 15Ps. The moles have some obvious advantages in terms of larger cargo capacity and more laser power and module slots, so I would always lean towards more of them in the mix. Finally, I've also added some escort ships in the form of fighters to cover the miners when they're operating, and a couple of redeemers to fly with the cargo ships. This could just as easily be heavy fighters like the Vanguards. I'd generally just be keen to avoid light fighters for this job, as the C2s might be travelling big distances and I don't want them to get slowed down by their escorts. So I honestly can't wait to put this idea to the test when 324 has a bit more polish, but I thought it would be cool to share some of the planning and theorycraft stage of ops like this, in a similar way to what we did previously with Salvage. And when things open up to Wave 1, we'll definitely be getting groups together and recording some actual footage of us trying it out. So if that sounds cool to you, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons so you catch that when it comes out. I know that some of the changes coming with 324, and indeed that came in with 323, might seem like the opposite of quality of life, making the game arguably a bit more tedious with the loss of instant access to inventory, etc. I think the flip side is that the game becomes deeper and more complex, rewarding folks who want to sink their teeth into problems and work out the best ways around them, particularly by working together in groups. Mining Loop in SC was my first love in the game, and even from the early days, as a group we have always been trying to look for ways to develop multiplayer combined ops around it. I think these changes coming with 324 are really set to cement this style of gameplay, and it's only going to increase after this once we see ships like the Expanse come in with ship-based refinery. Please do hit us up over at FRCN if you want to get involved with any of this, and do let me know down in the comments if you've got any ways in which you would refine my plan for how to run this sort of op. With all that said, I'd just like to say a big thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I look forward to seeing you next time.